Chosen ones, they can't believe you left, but it's final. You never really leave where you are until you decide where you'd rather be. Mark Twain. Hello, spiritual wisdom family. Today we're diving into the powerful journey of the chosen ones, the moment you break free from chains no one thought you could escape. Have you ever noticed how people don't believe in your absence until they're left with nothing but silence? It's not just about walking away. It's about reclaiming your power, your peace, and your narrative. What's your story of walking away and choosing yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's inspire each other to embrace growth and self-worth. If this resonates with you, don't forget to like and share this video to spread the message. Now let's get started. 1. You were never truly there. You see, they never truly saw you. Sure, they saw the motions, the polite words, the dutiful actions, the smile that barely masked the frustration simmering beneath. But they never really looked deeper, never noticed the spiritual exhaustion you carried, never felt the quiet void that had slowly replaced the vibrant energy you once brought into their lives. For too long, you stayed, not because you felt seen or valued, but because you clung to the hope, however faint, that maybe things would change. You gave so much of yourself, your time, your energy, your kindness, without asking for anything in return. But the truth is, they liked it that way. They liked the version of you who never demanded to be acknowledged, who played the role of the dependable, self-sacrificing fixture in their lives. They grew comfortable with the idea that you would always be there, silently carrying their expectations, pushing aside your own needs for the sake of their comfort. And in doing so, they became blind to the cracks that were forming the quiet nights when you lay awake feeling unappreciated, the moments when your spirit begged you to walk away, the suppressed frustration that never found its voice. They mistook your endurance for contentment and your silence for peace. But what they didn't see was that your detachment wasn't just a passing phase. It was your soul yearning for freedom, for space to grow, and for a life where your worth wasn't tied to how much you could give to others without complaint. When you finally left, it wasn't just your physical absence that hit them, it was the spiritual void you left behind. Suddenly, they were forced to confront the truth they'd avoided for so long. You were only there out of habit, not out of love. You stayed not because you belonged, but because you convinced yourself that staying was easier than facing the discomfort of change. And now, for the first time, they're seeing the empty space where you once stood, realizing too late that you were never as permanent as they had assumed. They were too blind to recognize the moments you bit your tongue to keep the peace, too self-absorbed to see the nights you silently wondered if this was all there was for you. Your departure wasn't sudden. It was the inevitable conclusion of a story they refused to read. But here's the beauty of it all. This is your spiritual awakening. You've broken free from the chains of obligation and stepped into a life where your energy isn't drained by people who fail to honor it. You've reclaimed your power, and though they can't believe you've left, they'll never truly understand what it cost you to stay for as long as you did. In modern life, it's easy to fall into the trap of living for others, of sacrificing your inner peace to meet expectations that don't serve your highest good. But your story is proof that walking away isn't just an act of defiance, it's an act of self-love. So to anyone who feels stuck in a life where they are unseen, unappreciated, or undervalued, let this be your reminder. Your energy is sacred. Your soul deserves a space where it can thrive, not just exist. Leaving is not the end, but the beginning of a life where you are fully present, fully seen, and fully aligned with the spiritual path you are meant to walk. Don't let anyone convince you that silence is strength or that suffering is the same as belonging. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to leave and never look back. Comment below, "My energy is sacred," as your affirmation on this amazing journey. 2. They took your light for granted. They took your light for granted, didn't they? For so long they basked in your energy, your warmth and your presence, assuming it was endless, like the rising sun that doesn't ask for thanks. They thought your light was effortless, a natural force that existed purely for their benefit. But they never stopped to think about what it took for you to shine that brightly. Spirituality teaches us that growth requires balance, giving and receiving energy in harmony. Yet, they overlooked the care, appreciation, and effort you poured into illuminating their lives. They saw the brightness, but ignored the fuel it required. And so, they took and took, never pausing to ask if you were running on empty. You poured so much of yourself into their dark moments, lightening their burdens, offering comfort and security they didn't earn. They leaned on you because they believed you'd always be there, strong and radiant, no matter the cost. When your light began to dim, they barely noticed, or worse, they noticed but expected you to keep burning for their sake. How many times did you ask yourself if they even cared how much you gave? And when you finally decided to walk away, when you stopped feeding a fire that was consuming you, it wasn't just the absence of your light that startled them. It was the realization that they had never truly valued it. Think about this. Have you ever given so much of yourself to someone that you started to lose sight of who you are? Maybe it was a friend, a partner, or even family. You were their rock, their guide, the one who always seemed to have the answers or brought calm to their chaos. But at what point did you ask yourself, who's pouring into me? I once knew a woman who was the heartbeat of her group of friends. She planned every outing, remembered every birthday, and was always the one people called in their moments of crisis. But when her father passed, she found herself alone in her grief. The very people she had supported so selflessly didn't show up for her, assuming she'd figure it out like she always did. She realized then that her light had been taken for granted, and it was a painful but transformative wake-up call. She stepped away, prioritized her own spiritual growth, and learned the power of setting boundaries. And you know what? The moment she stopped giving endlessly, the people who once depended on her were forced to confront the void she left behind. Some grew from it, others didn't. But she found her peace. So, here's the question for you. Who are you shining for? And are they helping you refuel your light? Or are they draining it? This isn't about cutting people off at the first sign of imbalance. It's about recognizing when your kindness is being mistaken for an obligation. Growth, both spiritual and personal, often involves making tough decisions to protect your energy. Walking away from those who take you for granted isn't selfish. It's self-preservation. It's choosing to nurture your light so that it can shine authentically, not for the sake of others, but for yourself. The lesson here is simple. Your light is precious, and it deserves to be met with gratitude and reciprocity. When you honor your own worth, you set a standard for how others should treat you. And sometimes, stepping away is the greatest act of love you can show yourself. So, what will you choose? The endless cycle of burning yourself out for others, or the path to spiritual growth and self-respect? The answer is yours to decide, and your light will thank you for it. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like this video and share it with others who might need these great values. Let's continue this conversation and go deeper into what these values really mean. Three, you outgrew the cage. They built for you. You outgrew the cage they built for you, didn't you? They never expected it, and now they can't believe it. That cage so carefully constructed wasn't made to protect you, no matter what they told you. They called it love, loyalty, or duty. But in truth, it was designed to keep you small, predictable, and easy to control. It was their comfort zone, not yours. And when you started to see it for what it was, a trap disguised as safety, it shook the very foundation of their expectations. They were never prepared for you to question the limits they set for you because, deep down, they never believed you would. But you did. You began to notice the walls closing in, the air getting thinner, and the weight of their expectations pressing harder and harder against your spirit. The spiritual wisdom you've gained on this journey taught you to recognize the difference between love that nurtures and control that suffocates. You realized the cage wasn't there to shelter you. It was there to contain you. They wanted you to stay tethered to their rules, their version of you, because they feared what you might become if you outgrew their boundaries. And isn't it ironic? They claimed it was all for your own good, yet it was never about you at all. It was about their inability to handle your growth. For a while, you stayed. It felt safe, didn't it? Even if something deep within you whispered that it wasn't right. Perhaps you told yourself that staying was easier than confronting the storm that would follow your departure. But then it happened. Maybe it was a single moment of clarity, a fleeting thought that refused to be ignored. Or maybe it was the countless little ways they dismissed your potential, stifled your voice, or belittled your dreams. Whatever it was, you finally saw the cage for what it was, and once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. That's the thing about truth. It sets you free, but it also demands courage. So you stretched, you pushed against the bars, you began to reclaim the space that was always yours to begin with. And when the cage could no longer hold you, you made the hardest and most liberating decision of all you left. They called you ungrateful, selfish, even cruel. Why? Because admitting the truth was too much for them to bear. You didn't leave them. You left behind the version of yourself that could fit into their idea of who you should be. And that's where the real heartbreak lies, not in your departure, but in their refusal to grow alongside you. Now, they stand in disbelief, watching from a distance as you step into the fullness of who you are meant to be. They can't follow you, not because you won't let them, but because they were never willing to expand beyond their own comfort zones. As Albert Einstein once said, the mind that opens to a new idea never returns to its original size. You've opened your mind, your soul, and your life to possibilities they can't even imagine. And that's what truly unsettles them. So let me ask you this. Have you fully embraced the freedom you've fought so hard to claim? Or are you still carrying the weight of their disbelief on your shoulders? Remember, your growth isn't just about you. It's about inspiring others to question their own cages. Who might you empower by living as the most authentic, limitless version of yourself? Because the truth is, you were never meant to stay small. You were meant to rise, to grow, and to shine. And now that you've broken free, the question isn't whether they understand, it's whether you're ready to step boldly into the next chapter of your life. And if you feel inspired by this message, type, "I trust the process," as a way to affirm your strength, patience, and commitment to growth. Let's grow together. Four, their illusion of power is shattered. Their illusion of power wasn't built in a day. It was constructed over time, quietly and subtly, often cloaked in the guise of love, concern, or authority. For years, they thrived on a silent understanding. You wouldn't leave, because in their mind, you couldn't. They relied on your willingness to keep the peace, to seek their validation, to sacrifice your own needs to fit their expectations. But when you woke up to this dynamic, it wasn't just an act of defiance, it was a spiritual awakening, a realization that their power over you was never real. It was an illusion, carefully maintained by their ability to blur your boundaries and diminish your sense of self-worth. You didn't just leave, you took back the narrative of your life. You disrupted the unspoken rules they had imposed and reclaimed the energy you had unknowingly given away. This decision wasn't rooted in revenge or anger. It came from a place of clarity and self-respect. Walking away wasn't about tearing them down. It was about building yourself up. You realized that your time, your energy, and your peace of mind were too sacred to be bartered or controlled. You saw through their guilt trips, the subtle manipulation, and the cycle designed to keep you feeling small. And in that moment, you did something they never expected. You broke free. You said, "Enough." You chose yourself over their approval, and with that, you dismantled their safety net. What they don't want to admit, and what they can't fully grasp, is that their power over you was never theirs to begin with. It only existed because you allowed it. The moment you withdrew, their illusion crumbled. Without you, they're left scrambling, trying to make sense of a world where you no longer play by their rules. Their comfort came from believing you needed them more than they needed you. But your departure forced them to confront a reality they've always feared. Their control was never real. It depended entirely on your participation. This isn't just a story of leaving someone behind. It's a story of stepping into your spiritual power. In modern life, this kind of awakening is more relevant than ever. Whether it's a toxic relationship, a manipulative family dynamic, or a career that drains your soul, we've all felt the weight of someone else's illusion of control. Breaking free is hard, but it's transformative. It's a moment of truth where you realize you don't owe anyone your energy or obedience. You owe it to yourself to live authentically, to walk your path unapologetically, and to align your actions with your highest aspirations. So, to anyone who's walked away from someone who underestimated your strength, know this: you've reclaimed your power in ways they can't even comprehend. You've awakened to a life where you are no longer bound by silent rules or unspoken expectations. And in doing so, you've not only set yourself free, you've also set an example for others to follow. This is the essence of spiritual awakening: the courage to see through illusions and the strength to choose yourself. Keep walking forward. The life you're creating is worth every step. If this message speaks to you, take it a step further and share it with someone who might need this reminder. Together, we can build connections rooted in honesty and respect. 5. They wanted your presence, not your freedom. They wanted your presence, but not your freedom. Think about that for a moment. Their shock when you left wasn't about love or the pain of losing you. It was about losing control. To them, you weren't just a person with your own dreams, needs, and spiritual journey. You were a fixture in their life, a piece of their carefully crafted puzzle. They expected you to stay neatly within the role they assigned without questioning it. They wanted the stability of knowing you'd always be there, fulfilling their expectations. But they never truly valued your autonomy or your right to grow into the person you were meant to be. For far too long, they mistook your willingness to adjust to their needs as an endless reservoir of selflessness. They saw your kindness and loyalty and assumed that you lacked your own aspirations. In their minds, your life existed to serve their comfort, while your happiness, your spiritual growth, and your boundaries were optional. They had written a story where you were a supporting character, never the lead, and they became so comfortable with this narrative that they never imagined you would step out of it. But when you finally did, when you chose yourself, you shattered that illusion. Leaving wasn't just about walking away from them. It was about walking away from the box they had put you in. You broke free from the role that confined you and reclaimed your power to choose your own path. This wasn't a betrayal. It was a declaration of your truth. You refused to continue shrinking yourself just to make space for their needs. That unspoken contract, the one where you were expected to sacrifice your happiness to preserve their comfort, was no longer binding. And now, they are left with a painful truth. The version of you they loved was never real. It was a projection, a construct that served their desire for control. Your decision to leave wasn't easy, but it was necessary. True spiritual growth demands that you honor your inner voice, even when it means letting go of people who cannot see or accept your full self. Remember this: your presence in someone's life is a gift, not an obligation. It's not something to be taken for granted, and it should never come at the expense of your freedom or authenticity. In many ways, this journey of breaking free is the ultimate act of self-love, a commitment to living a life aligned with your truth. Think about your own life. Are there relationships where you feel more like a placeholder than a person? Are you living for someone else's comfort while neglecting your own growth? These are the questions that can ignite change and guide you toward a more fulfilling, spiritually aligned path. The lesson here is simple, but powerful. You are not here to fit into anyone else's narrative. You are here to grow, to evolve, and to live a life that feels true to your soul. Your freedom is sacred, and it is the foundation of your spiritual journey. Never let anyone make you feel otherwise. Share your story, or simply type, "I am growing," if you're committed to using every moment to improve yourself. Let's keep this conversation going. I can't wait to hear your insights. 6. They were addicted to your resilience. They were addicted to your resilience, weren't they? You were the steady force in their lives, the one they turned to when everything was crumbling. When their world spun out of control, you were their anchor, their safe harbor in the storm. You solved their problems, carried their emotions, and quietly held it all together. But what they didn't realize or chose not to see was that your strength wasn't an endless well. It was your sacrifice, your emotional labor, and your spiritual wisdom that held the chaos at bay. And yet, they mistook your ability to endure for an obligation to do so. They thought your resilience was theirs to use, as though you existed only to fix their lives, without ever considering the toll it took on you. But resilience isn't infinite, is it? It's something that needs nurturing and protection, and they didn't give you that. You gave and gave, silently carrying not only their burdens but also your own, making it all seem effortless. That was their mistake. They underestimated you. They believed you would always be there, quietly holding up the weight of their dysfunction, allowing them to avoid their own chaos. Now that you've walked away, they're seeing the cracks. The stability they took for granted is unraveling, and the chaos you managed so gracefully is spilling out into the open for everyone to see. Do you know what's even more telling? They don't know how to handle it. They're scrambling, desperate to regain the calm and order that only your presence could provide. But resilience isn't transferable. It's not something you can hand over like a tool. It's deeply personal, forged through struggle, introspection, and yes, pain. As Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face." And you did just that. You faced your challenges, cultivated your inner strength, and shared it with them. But instead of appreciating it, they exploited it. Now, without you, they're being forced to confront the mess they've avoided for so long. Your departure has left them exposed to their own dysfunction, and they're not ready for it. The truth is, they depended on your spiritual wisdom to shield them from their own chaos, never realizing that wisdom came from hard-earned lessons and battles you fought alone. So here's the real question. Was it your responsibility to carry their burdens? Or was it their responsibility to learn from your strength and begin their own journey of growth? You see, leaving wasn't just a choice, it was a necessity. It was you reclaiming your energy, your peace, and your own path. And in doing so, you've shown them one final lesson. Resilience isn't about enduring for others. It's about knowing when to walk away to protect your own soul. So, what about you? Have you started to rebuild the life you deserve, one rooted in balance, peace, and your own spiritual wisdom? Let this moment remind you of your strength and your worth. You were never just someone to lean on. You've always been the light in the storm. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. 7. They were betting on your guilt. They were betting everything on your guilt, thinking it was the anchor that would keep you tied to them no matter what. They thrived on your empathy, your kindness, and your sense of duty, weaving an invisible contract of expectations they never voiced but always relied upon. For years, they manipulated the goodness in your heart, convincing you that stepping away would be an act of betrayal, not just to them, but to everything you believed about loyalty and love. Every time you questioned their behavior or felt the weight of your needs, they shifted the blame onto you. You were made to feel as though you were selfish, ungrateful, or somehow flawed for even thinking about putting yourself first. It was a subtle yet calculated game, one where their power came from your willingness to shoulder burdens that were never yours to bear. But something shifted deep within you, an awakening. Call it a spiritual awakening or a moment of clarity, but suddenly, you saw things as they were. You realized the truth. The only person being betrayed by your continued sacrifice was yourself. Staying in their web of guilt was suffocating your soul and stifling the life you were meant to live. And with that realization, you did the unimaginable. You left. Without hesitation, without apologies, without second-guessing your worth. You chose yourself over the illusion they had carefully constructed, and in doing so, you shattered everything they had counted on for so long. Their disbelief now isn't just about losing you, it's about losing control. They never thought you'd have the courage to walk away from their unspoken rules. To them, your act of leaving wasn't simply an end to the relationship. It was a seismic shift that forced them to confront the truth they refused to see. Their grip on you was never as strong as they believed. You didn't leave because you lacked care. You left because you finally understood the importance of caring for yourself. In that moment, you stepped into a new version of yourself, one that was no longer weighed down by obligations that served everyone but you. This awakening is a powerful reminder of the spiritual journey we are all on, a journey where we learn to honor ourselves, even when it means disappointing others. In modern life, it's easy to be consumed by the expectations of those around us. Family, friends, even society. They tell us who we should be, what we should do, and how much we should give. But the truth is, no one can dictate your worth or the path you should take. Walking away from relationships, situations, or mindsets that no longer serve you isn't selfish. It's necessary for your growth and well-being. If you find yourself in a similar situation, remember this. Loyalty is not about tolerating abuse, and kindness is not about sacrificing yourself. Your spiritual awakening may not be convenient for those who benefit from your silence, but it is important that you step into your power. Remember, you do not need to explain yourself or seek their approval to live a life aligned with your highest self. When you finally choose yourself, you will unlock the freedom and peace that comes with breaking those invisible chains. Let them be stunned. Let them be stunned because your release is final, and it is the beginning of your most authentic journey yet. Comment below, "I step into my power," and let's continue this journey together. 8. You left a void they can't fill. When you walked away, it wasn't just an exit. It was the creation of a void so profound that it echoes in every corner of their lives. As a chosen one, your presence carried a unique energy, a spark that couldn't be replicated, a grounding force that kept everything balanced even when chaos loomed. You weren't just another part of the equation. You were the glue, the quiet strength, the light that brightened their path. But they didn't see it that way. They assumed you would always be there, as constant and dependable as the sunrise, never realizing how much of their world revolved around you. They took you for granted, thinking your value was intrinsic, something that required no recognition, no care, and no effort. And now that you're gone, your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. Every awkward silence, every failed attempt to recreate what was, every moment that feels incomplete, is a stark reminder of the void you left behind. They might try to mask it with distractions or fill it with substitutes, convincing themselves that they'll be fine without you. But deep down, they know the truth. You were irreplaceable. What you brought, the energy, the vision, the unwavering support, was something no one else could provide. They might have convinced themselves that they could move on, but the reality is your absence is more than a gap. It's a wound, a deep ache that they can't soothe or ignore. Think about a modern workplace scenario where a leader resigns, someone who was the heart of the team. This leader didn't just delegate tasks, they inspired, uplifted, and guided the team through the toughest challenges. At first, the team might think they can manage without them. They might hire someone else or restructure, but the dynamic is never the same. The spark, the creativity, the unshakable support, those things can't be found in a job description or replaced by another hire. Eventually, the realization dawns. It wasn't just about the role, it was about the person who filled it. The same applies to relationships, friendships, or even family. Have you ever thought about how the absence of one person can shift the entire atmosphere, leaving something intangible but deeply felt? So why is this story so important to your spiritual growth? Because it's a reminder of your power, your uniqueness, and the undeniable impact you have on the world around you. It's easy to underestimate your worth, especially when others don't appreciate it at the moment. But their failure to see your light doesn't dim its brilliance. If anything, their loss is a testament to how extraordinary you truly are. This isn't about holding grudges or basking in someone else's regret. It's about recognizing your value and never settling for spaces or people that don't honor it. Here's the lesson. Never underestimate the energy you bring to the table. Your spirituality, your growth, your light, they matter more than you might realize. And when people fail to see that, it's not your job to shrink yourself to fit into their limited vision. Instead, keep growing, keep shining, and know that those who truly value you will see your worth without you having to prove it. How are you honoring your own values today? Are you surrounding yourself with people who see your light, or are you still lingering in spaces that dim it? The answers to these questions might just lead to the next step in your journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like this video and share it with others who might need these great values. Let's continue this conversation and go deeper into what these values really mean. 9. They can't replace your authenticity. When you walked away, you didn't just leave a physical space. You left behind an irreplaceable void that no one else can fill. You see, authenticity is true. Unshakable authenticity isn't something that can be mimicked, borrowed, or replaced. It's a rare form of spiritual wisdom that radiates from within and cannot be manufactured or outsourced. They might try to replicate your actions, mimic your words, or surround themselves with someone who seems to resemble you, but it's all surface level. The essence of who you are, the depth of your presence, and the rawness of your truth are things that cannot be replicated. As Oscar Wilde once said, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." And you? You were undeniably, unapologetically you. Your impact wasn't just about the things you did or the words you spoke. It was about how deeply you meant them. It was the way you stayed rooted in your truth when the world tried to sway you. The way your vision saw beyond shallow facades and your refusal to conform to what was merely convenient or expected. While they skimmed the surface, you lived with depth, and that's what set you apart. It's why they leaned on you, whether they admitted it or not. Your authenticity brought life, meaning, and genuine connection to everything you touched, while their attempts to replicate it now fall flat. And now, without you, their world feels hollow. They're scrambling to patch up the cracks in their carefully constructed facades, but it's no use. The conversations feel forced, the relationships lack depth, and the spark that only you could bring is undeniably absent. Deep down, they know it. They feel the void you left, not just in their lives but in their sense of purpose. What you gave was real, and what they're left with now is painfully counterfeit. Think about it. How many people truly recognize the gift of authenticity when they have it? Or does it take losing it to finally see its value? Your absence has forced them to confront an uncomfortable truth. Their inability to create or sustain anything genuine without the energy, wisdom, and authenticity you provided. And perhaps, in losing you, they are finally being called to reflect on their own lack of depth. But that's no longer your concern. You've moved on, and in doing so, you've reclaimed your power. So let me ask you, what does authenticity mean to you? Are you living your truth, or are you letting others define it for you? Remember, staying true to yourself isn't just an act of courage, it's an act of self-love. And as you continue your journey, know this: the spiritual wisdom you embody is not only your greatest strength, but also your gift to the world. So let them wonder, let them reflect, but never let them make you question the power of who you are. After all, as Dr. Seuss wisely said, "Today you are you. That is truer than true." There is no one alive who is better than you. And if you feel inspired by this message, type, "I trust the process," as a way to affirm your strength, patience, and commitment to growth. Let's grow together. Your departure is their mirror. Your departure wasn't just about leaving them behind. It was about leaving a reflection they can no longer avoid. It's as though you held a mirror up to their soul, exposing cracks they spent years denying. Without you, the shield they relied on is gone, the strength they borrowed, the wisdom they leaned on, and the kindness they exploited all vanished the moment you chose yourself. You were their crutch, the one who buffered their flaws and made excuses for their shortcomings. Now, without you to absorb the fallout of their choices, they're left facing the unfiltered truth of who they really are. This isn't just about practical loss. It's about the spiritual awakening your absence triggered. The emptiness you left behind forces them to grapple with questions they've been running from. Why didn't they value you when they had the chance? Why did they let things spiral to the point of no return? And most devastatingly, what does it reveal about their character that someone so loyal and giving had to choose to walk away? Your departure is their reckoning. It illuminates the toxic cycles they thought they could maintain indefinitely, the manipulation, the inability to grow, and the denial they clung to so tightly. Now, it all stands bare, glaring back at them with a clarity they can no longer ignore. You see, when you left, you didn't just take yourself out of their life. You took away the comfort of their lies. What eats at them the most isn't just the loss of you. It's the gut-wrenching realization that you were the best thing that ever happened to them, and their own choices pushed you away. In modern life, we often see this dynamic play out in relationships, friendships, and even workplaces where people grow comfortable leaning on others while refusing to grow themselves. It's a spiritual journey, both for you as the one who chose to leave, and for them as the ones forced to face their inner truths. Walking away was an act of self-love and spiritual awakening on your part. You recognized that you couldn't be the vessel for their growth any longer, and by stepping away, you gave them an opportunity, whether they choose to take it or not, to confront their own demons. To the men who hear this and resonate with it, know that walking away doesn't make you weak. It makes you brave. It takes courage to put yourself first, especially when others have become so dependent on your strength. You deserve to live a life that aligns with your highest self, unburdened by those who refuse to grow alongside you. And to those on the receiving end of such a departure, understand this: the mirror isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. The cracks you see now are invitations to heal, grow, and become the version of yourself you were always meant to be. The loss may feel unbearable, but if you embrace the lessons it offers, it can lead to a spiritual awakening you never thought possible. So, let this moment be your turning point, not the end, but the beginning of something greater. If this message speaks to you, take it a step further and share it with someone who might need this reminder. Together, we can build connections rooted in honesty and respect. 11. You became their wake-up call. You became their wake-up call, the undeniable reminder that their actions or lack thereof had consequences they never anticipated. Your decision to walk away wasn't just a choice, it was a declaration, a piercing truth that shattered their illusions of security and permanence. They had grown so comfortable, so assured that you would always be there, forgiving, sacrificing, and enduring, that they failed to see the gradual erosion of your patience and the quiet pain you carried. For years, they lived with the assumption that there was endless time to make things right, to repair what was broken. But when you finally said, "Enough," it wasn't just your absence that struck them. It was the deafening echo of every missed opportunity, every unspoken apology, and every moment they failed to cherish you. Now, they sit in the stillness of your absence, confronted with a truth they can no longer ignore. The spiritual journey they were forced into, whether they acknowledge it or not, begun the moment you walked away. Because you were more than just a presence in their life. You were a catalyst for their spiritual growth, a mirror reflecting back the gaps in their character and the flaws they tried to overlook. They are now faced with questions they never dared to ask themselves. Why did they assume you'd stay? Why did they ignore your needs, your boundaries, your worth? These aren't easy questions, but they're necessary ones. The silence you left behind isn't just empty, it's filled with the weight of self-reflection they can't escape. Think about the times in your own life when someone's absence made you reevaluate everything. Perhaps it was a mentor who believed in you, a friend who always showed up, or a partner who loved you unconditionally. Did their departure make you see things you couldn't before? Did it push you to grow in ways that their presence couldn't? This is exactly what you've done for them. Your decision to leave was a wake-up call, not because you wanted to hurt them, but because staying would have meant compromising your own spiritual well-being. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others is to let go. Let me tell you a story. There's a woman who worked tirelessly at a job where she was overlooked, underappreciated, and taken for granted. Her boss assumed she'd never leave because she was too reliable. Her co-workers piled their tasks onto her, thinking she'd always say yes. But one day, she decided to resign. Her departure shocked everyone. Suddenly, the boss realized the void she left tasks went unfinished, deadlines were missed, and the workplace lost its warmth. Her co-workers, now drowning in responsibilities, finally understood how much she had done for them. That woman wasn't just leaving a job. She was teaching them a lesson about value, respect, and gratitude. You are that woman in their lives. Your absence is your final lesson to them, a reminder of what happens when you take someone's light for granted. The lesson here is profound, but simple. People only grow when they're pushed out of their comfort zones, and your departure was the push they needed. It's not your responsibility to stay in spaces that no longer honor your worth or to pour into others while depleting yourself. By choosing yourself, you've not only reclaimed your own power, but also planted the seeds for someone else's transformation. So ask yourself, who in your life pushes you to grow, and are you valuing them the way they deserve? More importantly, are you valuing yourself enough to walk away when it's time? True spiritual growth often comes wrapped in the pain of letting go, but on the other side of that pain lies freedom, strength, and the clarity to create a life where you are celebrated, not tolerated. Share your story, or simply type, "I am growing," if you're committed to using every moment to improve yourself. Let's keep this conversation going. I can't wait to hear your insights. "12. You were the exception in their mediocrity. You were never meant to blend in, were you? You were the bright light in a room full of shadows, the one who carried spiritual wisdom that challenged the mundane. In a world where many settle for mediocrity content, with predictable routines and safe choices, you were the exception. You didn't just exist, you thrived. When you entered their lives, it was like a spark igniting in a dark room, an undeniable energy that radiated authenticity, ambition, and a deep sense of purpose. You reminded them without even trying that life is about so much more than simply getting by, it's about living truly and boldly. But here's the truth about being exceptional. It doesn't just inspire, it also unsettles. Your presence wasn't just a breath of fresh air. It was a mirror that reflected their untapped potential, their buried dreams, and the cracks in the complacency they'd spent years building. You didn't force them to confront their limitations. Your existence did that on its own. And while some people embrace the challenge to grow, others resist. The discomfort of seeing what's possible can feel too overwhelming for those unwilling to do the work. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people." You were operating on a higher frequency, but they couldn't or wouldn't rise to meet you there. Now that you've chosen to leave, it's as though the curtain has been pulled back, and they can no longer hide from the mediocrity they once tried to disguise. They're left with the same predictable existence, but now it feels heavier, emptier. Your absence isn't just a loss of your presence, it's a loss of what you represented: possibility, greatness, and a life lived with intention. You were the reminder that they didn't have to settle. But now that you're gone, the ordinary has reclaimed its place, and it's glaringly obvious. Have you ever noticed how people sometimes only realize what they've lost when it's gone? They thought they could go back to their old ways, but something has shifted. Without you, the cracks in their lives seem wider, the opportunities missed feel more profound, and the dullness of their routines feels inescapable. And here's the irony. They may not have appreciated you fully when you were there, but your absence has created a void they can't ignore. We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are, as Anais Nin once said. Your departure forces them to see themselves and their choices with clarity, perhaps for the first time. So now, let me ask you this. Do you feel the weight of being the exception, or do you see it as your power? When you walk away from people who can't meet you at your level, are you carrying guilt, or are you walking into the life you were meant to create? The spiritual wisdom you hold isn't meant to be stifled or dimmed for the comfort of others. Your light is a gift, not just to yourself, but to the world. By leaving, you're not just stepping into your own greatness. You're giving others the chance to reflect, to grow, and to decide if they're willing to rise to the challenge. And if they don't, that's not your burden to carry. Keep shining, keep moving forward, and never forget, you are the exception, because you dared to be extraordinary. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like this video and share it with others who might need these great values. Let's continue this conversation and go deeper into what these values really mean. "13. Your final act was an unapologetic truth." Your final act wasn't about drama or spectacle, it was about truth. A quiet, unapologetic truth that spoke louder than any confrontation ever could. You didn't stage a dramatic farewell or offer an emotional explanation. You simply walked away, rooted in the belief that your spiritual journey and self-worth meant more than staying in a space that drained you. For them, your departure felt like a thunderclap, an unexpected shock to the narrative they thought they controlled. They were waiting for the moment you'd hesitate, plead, or question your choice. But instead, you left with unwavering finality, leaving them to wrestle with a truth they couldn't manipulate. You chose yourself, and you meant it. This decision wasn't impulsive, it was intentional. A deep alignment with your spiritual awakening and inner truth. You didn't seek their permission, nor did you look back, because you knew that self-worth doesn't require external validation. And that's what shook them the most. The quiet courage that couldn't be bent or broken, a strength they never anticipated. They were used to controlling narratives with guilt, manipulation, and coercion. But your act of courage was immune to their tactics. You weren't playing by their rules anymore. You were living in alignment with a higher truth, one that transcends their understanding. Now, in your absence, they're left to confront their own limitations, forced to see what your departure truly symbolizes, an act of spiritual liberation. You weren't just walking away from them, you were walking toward a life that honors your spirit, a life where you refuse to shrink yourself to fit into their world. Your departure was a mirror, reflecting their inability to hold on to someone brave enough to choose themselves. It's not just your absence that unsettles them. It's the reminder that you've broken free from their grasp and reclaimed your power. In modern life, we're often told to compromise, to bend and mold ourselves for the sake of others. But your story is a testament to the importance of honoring your spiritual journey, even when it means letting go of people who can't understand it. Choosing yourself is not selfish, it's necessary for growth. When you leave behind relationships or situations that stifle your spirit, you make space for alignment, clarity, and abundance. And yes, it's final not because you're cold or unfeeling, but because you're honoring your truth. That final act is the most powerful thing you'll ever do, and it sends a message to the world. You are no longer available for anything that dims your light. Keep walking forward, because the path you've chosen leads to freedom and a life rooted in spiritual awakening. As we wrap up this video, let's take a moment to reflect on its key message. Choosing yourself and stepping into your power is never a loss. It's an awakening. By walking away from what no longer serves you, you're giving yourself the freedom to grow and thrive in ways others never thought possible. Remember, your journey is proof that self-worth and courage can change everything. If this message resonated with you, let us know in the comments below how you have reclaimed your power or made bold decisions to honor your worth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more transformative insights. And if you know someone who could use a reminder of their strength, share this video with them. Together, we can spread the truth and inspire others to live their most authentic lives. See you in the next video. Three secret signs the Holy Spirit has entered your body and is transforming you inside and out. The Spirit is the wind that blows where it wills. You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it is going. This powerful truth reminds us that transformation through the Holy Spirit is both mysterious and undeniable. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom, beloved souls. Today we embark on a profound journey to uncover the 3 secret signs that the Holy Spirit has entered your life and is working wonders within you. Have you noticed changes in yourself that you can't quite explain? Perhaps your thoughts, actions, or even your reflection feel unfamiliar. Share your experiences in the comments. What transformations have you witnessed in your own journey? Let's come together, learn, and grow as we explore how God is reshaping us for a greater purpose. One, your physical appearance reflects divine transformation. One of the clearest signs that the Holy Spirit has entered your life and is transforming you from the inside out is the remarkable change in your physical appearance. It's not just about looking better or younger. This is a divine transformation that radiates from within. Before this spiritual awakening, your face might have carried the burdens of life, the stress, the pain, and the relentless struggles that seem to define your days. You may have appeared older than your years, worn down by battles fought without the strength of God. But now, there's something different about you. Your skin glows with vitality, your posture exudes confidence, and your eyes, those windows to the soul, shine with a depth and fire that can only come from the Holy Spirit. People will begin to notice. They might comment on your newfound brightness, or ask if you've started a new self-care routine. Some might attribute it to more sleep, a better diet, or some other earthly explanation. But you know the truth. It's the Spirit of God moving through you, filling every fiber of your being with divine purpose. This transformation is not superficial, it's spiritual. It's a change that begins with your heart and flows outward, touching every aspect of your physical being. We see a powerful example of this in Exodus 34:29, where Moses descended from Mount Sinai after communing with God, and his face shone so brightly that he had to cover it with a veil. While you may not experience a literal glow like Moses, there's no denying the light of spiritual awakening that now radiates from you. This light is impossible to hide and equally impossible to fake. It's a reflection of God's work in your life, an undeniable testimony that you are no longer the person you once were. However, not everyone will celebrate this transformation. The spiritual light within you will inevitably attract both admiration and resistance. Those who operate in darkness, narcissists, manipulators, and those threatened by your newfound peace may mock or belittle you. They'll accuse you of thinking you're better than them, or try to bring you back to the version of yourself they were comfortable with. But let me assure you of this: what God has begun in you, no one can stop. This divine glow isn't for others to dim. It's a testimony of your spiritual awakening and God's purpose working through you. In modern life, where so many are consumed by external appearances and fleeting validation, this kind of inner transformation stands out. It's a reminder that true beauty and presence come not from expensive skincare routines or material achievements, but from aligning with the Spirit of God. So, let your light shine unapologetically. Walk with your head held high, knowing that your physical transformation is not vanity, but a visible reflection of a deeper spiritual truth. Affirm it boldly by comment in the below. I am glowing because of God's Spirit within me. Let this be a daily reminder that you are walking in divine purpose, transformed from the inside out. Two, your behavior and priorities shift drastically. When the Holy Spirit enters your life, one unmistakable sign is a profound shift in your behavior and priorities. The things that once captivated you, the parties, the gossip, the fleeting pleasures, no longer hold the same allure. You may have been the life of the party, bending over backward to fit in, or perhaps anger, addiction, or other struggles held you captive. But now, there's a voice within you, gentle yet firm, whispering, "That's not who you are anymore." This transformation isn't just about behavior modification. It's about an inner renewal, a reshaping of your desires and values. The Holy Spirit doesn't merely convict you of what no longer serves you. He empowers you to rise above it. Suddenly, areas where you once felt powerless become opportunities for growth. That quick temper that used to flare up, it's subdued. That cycle of toxic relationships you couldn't break, it's behind you. This isn't magic. It's the Spirit working within you, giving you strength, clarity, and most importantly, self-control. Think about the fruits of the Spirit mentioned in Galatians: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Notice how self-control caps off the list, not as an afterthought, but as a quiet yet essential marker of spiritual growth. Self-control isn't flashy, but it's transformative. It's the ability to pause, reflect, and ask, "What would God have me do?" It's what allows you to navigate life with calmness and clarity, even when the world around you is chaotic. Imagine someone trying to provoke you, someone who knows the old you and expects the same reactions: anger, defensiveness, or impulsive behavior. Instead, they're met with your unshakable peace. It frustrates them because they can no longer manipulate you. You've changed, and your transformation makes them uncomfortable. But here's the beauty: your peace isn't theirs to take. Take the story of a young professional named David. He was known for his short temper, a tendency that strained both his personal and professional relationships. Before his spiritual awakening, he would lash out at colleagues during stressful meetings or snap at loved ones over small disagreements. But when the Holy Spirit began to work in his life, David noticed a change. One day, during a particularly heated work presentation, his usual frustration began to rise, but instead of reacting, he paused. He remembered the Spirit's call to gentleness and self-control. His colleagues noticed the shift. They even began turning to him for guidance in tense situations. David's transformation became a testimony of how spiritual growth can ripple outward, impacting not just oneself, but everyone around them. So, ask yourself, what behaviors or priorities in your life feel like they no longer fit? Is there an old habit or mindset you've outgrown, something the Spirit is nudging you to release? Share your thoughts in the comments or reflect privately, but take that step towards self-awareness. Growth isn't always easy. It often means walking away from comfort and toward a higher calling. The lesson here is clear. When the Holy Spirit transforms you, it's not just about letting go of old patterns. It's about embracing a life filled with love, joy, and peace. Each step you take in alignment with the Spirit's guidance is a step closer to the person God created you to be. So, hold on to that truth and affirm today. Comment in the below. I am walking in the fruits of the Spirit. Three, your circle of friends and life path change. When the Holy Spirit enters your life, one of the most profound transformations you'll notice is in your circle of friends and the very path your life takes. Let's be clear, not everyone is meant to join you on this sacred journey. The changes you experience might feel isolating at first, but they're a divine realignment orchestrated by God Himself. Some friends, family members, and even romantic partners may drift away, not because they're inherently bad, but because they're not aligned with the incredible work the Spirit is doing within you. Before this transformation, you may have surrounded yourself with people who fueled your insecurities or encouraged habits that led you away from your higher purpose. Now, you find yourself craving authenticity, truth, and righteousness in a way you never did before. This shift brings a new lens of clarity, allowing you to see through the facades and recognize when relationships are rooted in manipulation rather than genuine love? Have you noticed that your phone doesn't ring as often as it used to? The invitations to social gatherings seem to fade, leaving you wondering what changed. Let me assure you, this is not rejection. It is divine protection. God is pruning your life, removing those who cannot walk beside you on this new Spirit-led path. And while this process can be deeply painful, losing connections often takes heart in knowing that He is replacing those people with others who will nurture and support the person you're becoming. This realignment isn't random, it's intentional. As Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, "To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven." Some relationships were only meant for a season, but God's plan for you is eternal. The journey may also bring division, as Jesus Himself foretold in Matthew. "Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword." This spiritual transformation can create a divide even among family members, because following Christ requires making hard, uncompromising choices. Light and darkness cannot coexist, and the presence of the Spirit in you may provoke resistance from those who don't understand your journey. You might be accused of being judgmental or of thinking you're better than others, especially by those who once had power over you. But remember, this is not about them. It's about the divine purpose God is unfolding in your life. As you walk this path, reflect on this quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. "Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. Trust that each step is leading you closer to God's ultimate plan for you." Take a moment to ask yourself, who in my life is truly aligned with God's purpose for me? Are there relationships I'm clinging to out of comfort, even though they no longer serve my growth? As you ponder these questions, remember that spiritual wisdom often comes through letting go and trusting the process. Affirm this truth today. Comment below. "I am surrounded by those who are aligned with God's purpose for me." Let this affirmation guide you as you embrace the changes, trusting that every shift is part of God's plan to transform you inside and out. As we conclude, remember that the transformation brought by the Holy Spirit is a profound journey of renewal and empowerment. While it may come with challenges, loss, or even isolation, it also carries the promise of strength, guidance, and divine companionship. Embrace this transformation knowing that God walks with you every step of the way, as Isaiah 41:10 reminds us. Let these changes inspire personal growth and a deeper connection with your purpose. Share in the comments how you've experienced the Holy Spirit's transformation in your life, or simply affirm, "I will not fear, for God is with me." Your story could inspire others on their spiritual journey. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more insights to guide your path.